Hi, I'm Ash and welcome to this wingtips review of the North Nova Pro. The Nova Pro comes in 5 sizes: 2.9 meters, 3.5 meters, 4.2 meters, 5 meters and 6 meters. The wing we have in test here is the 5 meter version of the wing. If we start with the construction, then the Nova Pro is using new and what some have termed exotic materials. North have their own division for making materials and sailcloths, and they've used that expertise in developing this new Nova Pro wing. The leading edge is made from hybrid N-Weave 45. This is an advanced textile that is 3 times stiffer in the warp direction and 2 times torsionally stiffer in the 45-degree bias direction. This is compared to 176 GSM Dacron. It is also 30% lighter, which with my maths makes it around 123 GSM. If we ignore the technical speak, what we have here is a similar type of material in terms of stiffness to a Lula Gold, although not quite as light as a Lula Gold is only 82 GSM. The canopy of the Nova Pro is made of 2 different materials, matrix canopy and NHTRS. The matrix canopy makes up the back 2/3 of the canopy to the trailing edge, and the NHTRS is the front 1/3 from the leading edge. Compared to traditional canopy cloths, matrix is 2.5 times stronger to stretching and 5 times stronger on the 45-degree bias. I couldn't find a great deal of information on the canopy material GSM, but my understanding is that the matrix material is about 80 GSM, which makes it quite heavy compared to some other manufacturers using ripstop at mid-50 GSM weights. The bottom line here is that we have a very strong and stiff wing, similar in stiffness to an Alula wing, but it is not lightweight like an Alula wing, and tips the scales with the boom attached at around 3.2 kilograms, which makes this one of the heaviest 5 meter wings on the market. So I think North are aiming here for stiffness and durability with this wing. Some other things of note are the wingtips feature carbon tape to assist the wingtips in snapping back into shape faster. This carbon tape is inside of the leading edge of the wingtips, so this will make the wingtips more reactive but also help to mitigate stretch in this area of the wing. The Nova Pro features the shift lock system, which allows you to connect different handles, booms, camera mounts or various other accessories to the strut. This is a dual rope track that allows you to screw the handles onto the strut. This rope track also adds some stiffness to the strut. Effectively, you can position your handles or boom wherever you wish on the strut, allowing user customization for handle placement. There are various sizes of handles as well as a boom option, and we tested both. One thing to note is the 1100 boom will not fit on the Nova Pro 2.9 meter, so if this smallest wing in the range is in your quiver and you plan to just buy one boom, then you may need to rethink that strategy. The wing features North's usual valves, with a valve for leading edge and the strut, as well as the option for one pump, as there is a connection between the leading edge and the bladder with a locking off clip. Inflation for the wing is to 8 psi, which combined with the exotic materials makes for a pretty stiff wing. If we come onto the handles, they are carbon and as lightweight as North can make them. They feature a glued and sewn outer foam or rubber padding. I have to say this is one of the most comfortable handles I've used, and the diameters are nice and should not cause too much issue in winter if you are from colder climates and need to wear gloves. Nice touches on the handles are a place for your thumb on the end and soft rubber padding on the handle ends to stop board damage. The front handle is very solid and features a soft knuckle abrasion pad. My only complaint from an ergonomics perspective would be that the strut is very straight, and that's due to the ability to fit either a boom or handles, but this does negate the option to put a bend in the strut to align the handles better with the wrists. There is a little curve to the strut, but it's nothing like as ergonomically aligned as the Unit 2024 handles, for example. If we look at the wing itself, it is a very tight canopy. The build quality and stitching is extremely well done, and certainly on par with the best manufacturers on the market. We have some dihedral in the wing, and in the flagged position just stood on the beach it seems to be quite stable and not particularly prone to oscillation. Any start to oscillation can be easily corrected through the strong and stiff front flag handle. It is worth mentioning here that the wingtips in black are not the N matrix material but just a standard Dacron. This gives them a little more flex and user friendliness in gusts where the tips will flex and take the power out of the gust. The wing comes with a leash, and in my opinion it's a good leash and includes a swivel to stop the leash tangling up over time. It has a loop through clasp, and the only thing it's missing is a locking velcro strap to stop it accidentally tearing open and flying off your wrist. I do like a belt and braces approach to wrist leashes, although if you're planning on going in big waves I would recommend changing to a waist leash instead to stop your arm and shoulder getting pulled in a big wave impact. If we just come back to the shift lock system, I feel like most people are going to go for the boom option because that option is the very lightest handle you can put on this. I say this because this wing is pretty heavy. This does however make the shift lock system, purely from a handle positioning perspective, not a lot of use, as you really don't need to move a boom around on the wing. And just to add a pro to that con that I've just made, one advantage we have is if you are using a boom, you don't need to deflate the Nova Pro to swap the boom between wings, unlike a duotone slick for example, where some deflation is required to remove the boom. Okay, let's move on from construction and features and look at on the water performance. I've been doing wing reviews for a while now, and I want to structure this better for this review and future reviews. So we will cover here pumping onto foil and pump technique, low end and high end of the wing, stability of the wing, balance between the hands and behaviour in gusts, normal jibes, advanced jibes, tacks, jumps, flagging out and swell or wave riding, speed of the wing, and overall thoughts on the wing performance. Starting with pumping onto foil, the Nova Pro doesn't require any special pump technique. It seems to work quite happily with just a basic pump method. When you bias a wing in one direction, it tends to ruin the opposite end, and the Nova seems very much in the middle with regard to both low end and high end. It is neither a very grunty low end wing or a high speed top end wing. The Nova Pro is quite heavy, so in very light winds you do tend to feel that weight, and it does make pumping more tiring than it might be with a much lighter wing, especially if you have to hold the wing up in lulls waiting for a lucky gust to get you onto foil. The Nova is very stable when on foil. The balance between hands front to rear is very nice, and it is a wing that likes to just sit still and not twitch around much in gusts. So from a beginner's perspective this is quite a nice attribute, as the Nova tends to put itself where it needs to be for power and then stays there. In gusts, the balance of the wing doesn't shift, so the stiff leading edge and tight canopy do their job in keeping the wing very stable. In normal jibes, especially in lighter wind, you once again feel the weight of the wing, so in underpowered conditions you do get a lot of tail drop and the wing loses its ability to fly sooner than other much lighter wings. Once the wing gets up, it's a lot happier and it's a relatively easy wing to manage through a jibe and doesn't do anything unexpected. It rotates quite nicely and overall is pleasant to use in a normal jibe. For advanced jibes, the tight canopy assists, and race jibes and Heinekens are very drama free and the wing cuts through the air very nicely. When it comes to tacks, the Nova is a little bit reluctant to pass through the eye of the wind. I've heard that previous Novas had a lot of negative pressure in the wing when tacking. Thankfully this is not present in the Nova Pro, however it isn't a wing that tends to open out and pull you through the tack readily, like a duotone unit or a slick for example. Instead it tends to go very neutral as you hit the eye of the wind, and you have to push it through to get it to open out and repower. It's certainly not bad at tacks, but there are other wings that make this easier. In jumps, the Nova is a stiff wing, so it does provide quite a nice amount of lift, and as an added bonus the leading edge and canopy are very stiff, so it gives you a decent amount of float back down rather than bending and dropping you faster. The Nova Pro has a good flag out and is fairly neutral. It does tend to tail drop due to its weight. This can catch you out as it can drop its trailing edge unexpectedly when you would not expect it to be out of positive lift. Additionally, if it does get the odd oscillation, it can be a little harder to bring it under control due to the wing's swing weight being higher than most other wings on the market. Fortunately, it does have a good solid flag handle, which does allow good control of the wing when flagged. As previously mentioned, Nova Pro probably isn't going to be a race winner. It's pitched very much in the middle of the road with regards to low end and high end, which means it isn't really a race wing. North have race wing alternatives like the Mode Pro or Mode Ultra Pro if you really want to go far. Overall, I would say this is a very good wing. It has very few unwanted characteristics, and really its main issue is one of weight rather than overall design and performance. It could easily be used by a beginner as it is very stable, and similarly intermediates or experts will like how it behaves in manoeuvres and jumps, which it accomplishes very well, with really only one area, the tack that I already mentioned, where it is a little reluctant to open out and repower without some coaxing. It is very solidly built, which means that as a purchasing decision you are really weighing up whether you value durability or whether you value lightweight, which is often at the expense of durability. For me personally, I'm not a huge fan of heavy wings, and somewhat surprisingly the Nova Pro did a reasonable job of hiding that weight in a lot of areas. However, overall for me it's just a bit too heavy, and I'd rather sacrifice a bit of durability for extra performance. This is really personal preference, as I feel someone who wants their wings to last a couple of seasons might well trade a bit of weight for bomb-proof construction. Overall, I feel this is a well executed product with great construction, but you need to decide if the extra weight is something you can live with or prefer over a lighter but potentially less durable offering. Lastly, we should talk about price, and the Nova Pro for the 5 metre is £1,099. That's without a handle. If you add a boom, which is probably the one that most people will go for, that's about another £100. So that takes you to €1203.95 for the wing. That's €1,400 or $1,500. So in terms of what you get for your money, we need to bear in mind that there are exotic materials in this wing, then it's probably very good value for money compared to an Alula wing. However, it's not as light as an Alula wing, so we need to bear that in mind. I'd just like to mention that this review was made possible by the Water Sports Centre, who allowed me to demo this wing on multiple occasions in order to review it in a range of conditions and produce this review. As with all my reviews, the Water Sports Centre, or indeed any shop or manufacturer, have no editorial control over the review content, and as such the presented review is entirely independent. If you want to show the Water Sports Centre some love, their links are in the description.